Hi everybody, tonight we're going to discuss price discrimination, which is module 63 in your books. So this whole idea of price discrimination, because the word discrimination is being used, at first glance, sometimes this sounds like a pricing strategy that violates the law. Actually, it's a very common practice that we've all seen all over the market. So let's think about this. So far we've looked at monopolists who charges only one price, we'll call that price PM, to all customers buying QM units. This is called a single price monopolist. Easy example of that we've used is the utility. Now, let's ask ourselves some questions here and see if we can start getting our heads around price discrimination. If you and your grandparents go to Denny's and order the same Denver omelets, who pays a lower price, you or your grandparents? If you and your 6-year-old cousin go to the movies to watch Toy Story 3, is there one or the other that pays a higher price for the ticket? If you buy a plane ticket to DC for a flight that leaves tomorrow, and your friend bought a ticket on the same flight but bought it a month ago, who's paying a higher price? Twin siblings here, they call them Daisy and Donald, turn 16 and go to the insurance company to get car insurance. Who gets the lower rate for the same policy, a girl or a boy? This is an interesting one. So basically, price discrimination happens when the same product, so movie tickets, plane ticket, insurance, food at Denny's. Price discrimination is when the same product is sold to different consumers at different prices. It happens all the time around us, and firms do it for pretty logical, not illegal reasons. That's a pretty important thing. They do it to increase their profits. So let's assume that Denny's is a local restaurant and they're famous for their Grand Slam breakfast. Good luck for us, they are. There are only two market segments excuse me, that enjoy the Grand Slam: senior citizens and college students. So here we have senior citizens and we have college students. Let's assume that Denny's incurs marginal cost of $2 for each Grand Slam they produce. Let's assume there are 100 senior citizens and 100 students who want to buy the Grand Slam. Now, let's assume that students are willing to pay $8 each and seniors are willing to pay $4 each. You guys might remember the term willingness to pay. Willingness to pay for students is 8. Willingness to pay for the seniors is 4. Now, a single price firm might face a tough choice on what price to charge here. Are they going to choose 8 or are they going to choose 4? They could price it at 8 and sell only to the college students, but lose the senior citizens. Total profit there would be what? $8 minus $2 times 100, or $600. They could set the price at 4 and sell to both groups, but they'd lose all that profit from the college students. So it would be, total profit would be 200 units sold times 4 minus 2, since that's the new price, would be $400. So here they'd have $600 versus $400. Or Denny's could try to differentiate between the two groups by doing something like asking senior citizens to show a valid ID and then offer two prices. So let's assume these are college students, these are senior citizens. Seniors can come in and get a discount. Now that is very common at a place like Denny's, where senior citizens will get discounts. Total profit in that case is going to be what? It's going to be $600 from the student profit, like the prior example where we talked about students only, and you're also going to get, excuse me, 4 minus 2, so your total profit here is going to be, and make sure I got the math right, you're going to get $600 plus 100 times 2, so $200 is $800 for both. So we can see the profit. So why is it that seniors aren't as willing or able to pay for Grand Slams as students are? Why were students willing to pay $8? What gives with the difference in price there? Well, senior citizens get discounts because they have very high price sensitivity. They are generally on fixed incomes. They don't have as much money to spend. Similarly, children under 12 get a cheaper movie ticket because the parents of those kids are price sensitive to the additional cost of taking kids to the movie. Business travelers also are less sensitive to price than leisure travelers, and that's why in this example, when we were going through these, plane ticket to DC for a flight that leaves tomorrow. Well, if I'm a business traveler, I'm going to spend a lot more than somebody who bought it a month ago. And that's simply because I am less sensitive to that price as a business traveler because I have to be there. Well, what makes one more group sensitive than another? Smaller budget, again, children versus adults at the movie theater. And here they call it a smaller budget mostly because if I'm taking my kids versus just my wife and I going, I'm going to become increasingly sensitive to going to the movie. More flexibility to alter plans. So seniors, they can go someplace else. College students, probably pretty hungry, got to eat. Seniors, again, also on very fixed income. More substitutes. So vacation travelers versus business travelers. If I have business in DC, I have to go to DC. If I'm a vacation traveler and I can't get a cheap ticket to DC, I may go somewhere else instead and enjoy my vacation. We've seen what happens when someone like Denny's can price discriminate between distinct groups of customers. You had students here willing to pay $8. You had senior citizens here who were willing to pay $4. Now, if Denny's were actually operating, excuse me, if Denny's were operating in a situation where they were able to perfectly price discriminate, that means that they'd find even within this group of senior citizens or students, they might find some students willing to pay more, and they also might find some senior citizens in this area who are actually willing to pay more, something between $4 and $8. They'd actually fill up all this area with revenue. They'd also find customers who are absolutely willing to go down to the point where demand equals marginal cost. Now, the reality is that they can't. The reality is they're going to have to price discriminate this way rather than showing this profit with perfect price discrimination. Again, why is this profit? Well, it's because it's the revenue here, all the way up here, minus marginal cost is going to give you, or rather, sorry, revenue is this entire area minus marginal cost. In this case, let's just imagine it goes up here to $12. You'd have a $10 profit going all the way down to zero profit, where this last customer was willing to pay $2 and the marginal cost is $2. Now, we know in reality that doesn't happen. We aren't able to perfectly price discriminate. But you do get some sense here of what happens when you have different customers with different willingness to pay for a particular product. So can you think of an example where this whole idea of willingness to pay is more closely determined during the buying and selling process? So a situation where somebody figures out how much you're willing to pay during the actual selling process. I can think of two. One is buying a car. When you go and buy a car, you can haggle over the price. Dealer may start at $20,000. You may be willing to pay $16,000. You go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and the dealer is going to figure out your willingness to pay. You're going to figure out the dealer's willingness to sell as well. The second is an auction, where auctioneers will start bidding up products by consumers' willingness to pay, ultimately awarding the product to the consumer who is willing to pay the most. You can probably think of more situations, and we can discuss them in class tomorrow. So, key concepts for this module. Legal forms of price discrimination are the very common practices is selling the same product to different customers at different prices. So different price of movie tickets, different price of Grand Slam at Denny's, different price for airline tickets, and so on. Importantly, if a firm has monopoly power to engage in price discrimination, it can increase its profit by doing so. And we saw here, we talked about the different profit opportunities that it had by offering one price to one segment and one price to another segment. Third, the consumer group that has the greatest price elasticity of demand, so the more price-sensitive group, will end up paying lower prices. Here we had students who were willing to pay a higher price, so that's what they paid. Seniors, not as willing, so higher price elasticity of demand, meaning, again, demand much more sensitive to a change in price, and those consumers will move on if they don't find something they like at their price. Also, perfect price discrimination, remember, is the special case where the firm charges each consumer his or her maximum willingness to pay. If that is successful, consumer surplus, all of the consumer surplus is transferred monopoly profits. Again, as a reminder, consumer surplus in a graph like this, let's do it in this one instead, is for these number of consumers, each of whom was willing to pay something higher than 8, they were only charged 8, and this was their surplus. Here too, senior citizens, consumer surplus. So that is it for tonight. Have a great one, and I will see you tomorrow in class.